Good morning. In this 6th week of Easter, on Monday, we are preparing for Pentecost. And if we think about it, in the church calendar, we celebrate Pentecost Sunday at the end of this month. And we're currently in Eastertide. But right after Pentecost Sunday, we enter into what's called ordinary time. So this period we call Eastertide. We need to see it perhaps as the preparation for Pentecost, because this is the time when the church relives the early church, relives the book of Acts in a wonderful way. You know, people say, oh, it would be wonderful if we were back in the time of Jesus to walk with Jesus. But for me, I'd rather be reliving the book of Acts, because in Jesus' earth ministry, it was just Jesus, and people, even his disciples, didn't understand what he was doing half the time. But when the book of Acts opens up, we see it's post-resurrection, and then they waited upon God in prayer until the day of Pentecost was fully come. And then the power of the Spirit emboldened, enlivened, and changed and transformed the lives of the disciples, and the community of faith was birthed and had this life and this out evangelism and outward sensing explosion of faith happened. That birth, of course, was the birth of the church. But let's not see it just as historical, but this is something that's alive and active. If ever we need it, a Pentecost, it's here today in the days we live in. As we've been in lockdown for 2 months, you know, it's been kind of like a furlough. People have been actually furloughed from their work. That's the term we've been using. But it's been a furlough, a fallow field, the first time since the Industrial Revolution, when the industrialized nations of the earth have actually settled and stopped and had time to reflect and pause from the mad rush of commercialism and capitalism. And so, sad and tragic though the events of the last 2 months may well have been, and our hearts of course go out to those who have suffered, who have lost loved ones, and who have had their careers and destroyed, or their jobs curtailed and so forth. Sad as that is, can we look for a moment to see the positives? You know, when there's a change, a radical change in our lives, very often it brings great blessing. Tragedy has an upside if we'll allow God to work. I know that's true in my own life, and I'm sure many of you can relate to that idea of tragedy and hard times actually sometimes becoming the greatest birth of blessing. But imagine the whole world has been going through a hard time for whatever reason we don't understand yet at this point in time. That's not the point. The point is we've all been in lockdown in one form or another and had to reconfigure, reset our mental self and our heart and our mind. And so this time is a time when we all can allow God to move in our lives in a unique way. The roadblocks to faith, not just individually but corporately, have perhaps been swept away so that we can enter into a new dynamic. Now, as I speak, you can hear the birds, but I'm aware that 2 weeks ago there wouldn't have been the traffic noise, there wouldn't have been a car alarm going off in the distance, which you can probably hear. There was a stillness. And I don't want to lose that sense of stillness. I don't want to lose that sense of God working interiorly in my life. But God wants to also bring about an outpouring and a new paradigm, a new way of thinking that will bring us into closer conformity to the image of Jesus Christ. Don't let this moment slip by. We might never have a moment like this before as we prepare for Pentecost. God bless you. I'm John Ruffle, and I'm part of the Shalom Charismatic community here in Birmingham, England. God bless you all.